Yes. It is time for the Author's Dilemma show. It is Thursday evening, and if you live in the wonderful state of Arizona, that's the only place that would probably be different because they don't observe daylight savings. They stay the same time all year long.
Lucky.
And yes, I wish I was the same because although we did get an hour, it has changed everything, and now my schedule's all off. And anyway, for those that are on our time, it's 6:30 p.m. Central on Thursday evening, and we appreciate you spending your time with us either live or listening to us wherever you are. I am J.E. Jack. I write urban fantasy and paranormal thrillers.
Hyrum Hawks, and I write hard sci-fi and sci-fantasy.
I'm Jennifer Carr. I write Christian romance and clean contemporary romance.
So it's been a busy week for all of us. Well, first, before we talk about anything, let's talk about what's going on. What do y'all want to do? Do we want to talk about our business first, or do we want to talk about news-worthy items?
I think business, because I think the news items could take us into further conversation.
Okay. Hiram, what's going on in your world?
Well, I just learned that having 85 things open at the same time on this laptop made you guys all sound like robots, and I just managed to close enough things that I could actually understand you guys. So I'm doing great now. But as far as business, there's a reason 85 things are open. I've been pretty busy with work, but also I have started co-authoring with someone from one of my writing groups. I don't think she's ready for her name to be revealed yet, but I will eventually do that. We're doing the alt history Regency sci-fi romance together.
Nice.
I am writing the main story that we're outlining and brainstorming together, and then she goes back through and she's putting in the color and romance and all that, stuff that gives it that feel. Trying to make it so it feels like a Regency romance that just happens to be trying to survive the fact that the Martians have now showed up. They are human, though.
That's wild. I love that. I'm excited to hear how that works out because...
Yeah, it's a new challenge.
For sure.
And it's fun because the end result is not my work. It's not her work. It really is this weird blend that has a totally different tone than either of us normally write. So I'm still working on my work in progress, the fractal singularity. I just passed 71,000 words. I've escaped. I'm in the last fourth of the book essentially, and so I'm no longer in that muddled middle, and so I'm feeling the end pulling me forward, and so that's great. Though I did just hit a kind of a roadblock because I got to decide if this certain character is gonna live, gonna die, have a romance, not, and so side character became way too important, and now they're kind of making me make some decisions, and so that's fun. But yeah, at this point, that we're probably going to take about a year to do the co-authoring, and then my book should be done with any luck on its first draft by the end of the year. I keep saying, end of the month, but then every time I say I'm going to finish something by the end of the month, someone goes to the hospital. So maybe if I say the end of the year, no one will go to the hospital.
Also, you're about to be in the middle of holiday season, and so nothing really happens on time this time of year. Not for me, anyway.
I do not engage with the holidays like most people, and so it is the only time that's different is the fact that I get the week off from Christmas to New Year's, and I will be attending some events. Mostly, I will be writing.
Nice, Loki. I'm just kidding, Mom.
Yeah. So Jen,
be careful.
Jen, what's going on with you?
Well, let's see. So, Real American Country is the series that I'm releasing currently, and all those books are written.
Book 2, it's brilliant. Book 2
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Yes, it was. I mean, book 1 still has a special place for me, but I'm proud of book 2. It was good. And so I've written all of those books, and then I've started the spin-off series for those books, and it picks up on one of the characters, which nobody has met yet because it's in a book that's still in editing, but it picks up on one of those characters' stories and kind of moves along from there in a totally different setting, which is interesting and exciting with a totally different group of people. And so I'm excited to kind of have that in the past, but at the same time, it's kind of catching up with me. And so there's going to be a little bit of back and forth that I have to work through. And so I've done all of my word vomit onto the page. And so now I've got to make sense of it and make it a book. Yeah.
After Josh has talked his business, I would love to hear about how you managed to have characters from the first book in the later books, where in the first book they're a main character, but in the later books they're supporting characters. That's
Sure.
We can talk about that now. I mean, it really doesn't.
Okay.
I mean,
Well, and so what happens is in book 4 of Real American Country, that book is called Still Holding Out for You. In that book, you see two of the, and if you don't know the series, it revolves around a country music reality TV show. And so you see two of the characters kind of fall in love. I mean, that's not a surprise. It happens. It's romance. But then something happens where you end up with one of those characters on his own. And so we see what happens to him years down the road. Things pick up and happen to him and for him and that kind of thing. So it's kind of a second chance situation. And so in his book, in book 4, you do see his parents and you see his brother who is going to have his own story in the next series and that kind of thing. And you actually see Christopher Jordan from book 1 of Real American Country. You see him again in this series, but he's like super background character. And so, but nonetheless, you still see his name and you're like, oh, so I know that there's something going on, which I kind of like because I can do like a little check-in on my characters and be like, how are y'all doing? So, yeah.
well, that's a treat for the readers because,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, because it's kind of like the story's done, but you still want to know what's going on in their
Yes.
life. So it's
Exactly.
Kind of like,
That's how I feel about it.
Right.
Yeah.
even in book 2 when what's her name, I'm not going to spoil anything, so the villain shows up. I immediately, when you have access to the author, sometimes you can be a little bit of a pest. Is she going to be the villain in this one? And Jen was like, basically she said, read and find out.
But then when you get to book 5, she gets her own story. And so it changes everything. Yeah.
See, I think that's really interesting because you focus on characterization or characters.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my books kind of focus on, well, characters, but also location.
Yeah.
Because I love reading books and I'm like, oh, I've been there. Oh, I know that place.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my books include real places. And yeah, people have been there. They know it. They'll be like, oh, yeah.
Right.
Because I've read books like that and it's always excited me. So that's kind of interesting how anyway.
Well, and you also focus a lot on the story, right? Like your plot is super important. Your characters are important because they play into it, yes, but your plot and your setting is huge in your stories. But yeah,
Right.
the characters, that's what characters
They just
are in
happen to
my
be there.
books. Right. You gotta have somebody doing the something. But characters are where my books start.
I'm trying to walk both of those worlds I'm really trying, and it's sometimes really hard when you're writing a sci-fi to not have
Yeah, I've never been to
plot.
Mars. I don't know.
To not have, well, that too, but to not have the characters have the plot drive and the characters get forgotten, because sci-fi is very heavy plot, just focused in general, but some of the greatest sci-fi books have very good character development. Like, I mean, Dune is one of those.
Right.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Right. Yeah.
For sure.
So in my business, man, so I've written 5 books.
Yay.
Yes. And that's, something we should probably talk about too, is the cost of writing a book. And we could talk about that tonight if you want. Because a lot of people don't realize what goes into it. You can do it for free. You can totally do it for free. But if you want to be just as good, and I use quotations, as traditional publishers, you need to invest in your business, because this is a business, and it's, there's a certain point where it's a hobby, or it's a certain point where it becomes a dream, or not a dream, but like I'd like to see where I can take it. And, the first couple tries you learn. And then with each work that you put out, you get a little bit better, and then you realize what you need, and what you need costs money.
Yeah, it does.
but I will say this, I started in 2020, and it's 4 years later. Like I said, I got 5 books as of last week out, and now I'm starting to see traction in my readership. So I'm really excited about that. The my ads are doing pretty good for the book I just released, Lou Giroux, an OPD detective, and I think the difference between my previous books versus now is, it took me a little bit to build readership because I wrote standalones. Well, this one is completely in a genre, and you'll find that too. Like, you can get into this business and become an indie filmmaker, and indie filmmakers are good, and some of them are really quite good. But if you write stories, or if you write or make movies that are very niche, almost art-like, it's really a hard sell because people just don't know that genre, or they don't understand it, or whatever. But when you start kind of gravitating towards like different genre, like specific genres with their own tropes and their own whatever, or series for that matter, it really starts to grow. And now I'm starting to see that. Like, it's one thing to hear it, but when you actually experience and see how, it's just interesting. That's all. I mean, so I'm really excited because I'm at a stage where I'm nervous because this is the first time my book has actually made money, because I've always spent, because with ads, I always did it at a loss, because at that point I was always trying to, just build my readership, just get exposure. So I didn't really mind so much, and obviously the loss at first was pretty extensive. But over time, it got better. And now I'm to the point where now I haven't recouped the money I've put into this book, but I think I can eventually. I mean, so it's really,
I believe it was Brandon Sanderson who said that he was an overnight success after 10 years of work.
Oh, yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand that, but it's true. It's like, you put in the groundwork now, years.
Yeah. Well, and also I think you've also learned a lot along the way, right? Because your ads have gotten better and your
Right.
copy has gotten better, and just in general you've kind of picked up on skills that you didn't have even last year.
Right.
And so, that also makes a big difference. And so
Categories matter. Keyword
And
category.
you no longer look at marketing perhaps as the 4-letter word. Well,
that's right.
well,
Like,
but
I mean, it's still tough. I mean, it's not, it's not easy
Right.
by any stretch.
Right. Oh, no.
But but it's just so weird because, when you first start seeing success, you just, and here again, it's not life changing, but it is in a way, because you start seeing, oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you get worried because you're like, man, I don't want to change anything.
yeah.
It's like, I don't want to touch it. It's working. And it's like,
Yes.
but
No touchy.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I will say this,
fair.
now I'm working on book 2, and I was kind of alluding to it before, and I've done it in the past on another episode, but now it's even more stressful because now I know that I'm writing a series. I have to be aware of everything, and I hope that this book is just as good as the first one. And now it's just taking me a lot. I don't know. Anyway, I'm excited though. But no, things are good. Things are good. Oh, and I just got locked on with my narrator, Sean Walpole,
Oh, yeah.
the one that's read pretty much all my books. And so I'll be getting a audiobook out on Lou Giroux here probably before the end of the year, I'm hoping. So as far as my business is concerned, I'm ecstatic. I'm excited about the future. And yeah, we'll see what happens.
That's awesome.
So
I love it. I love that feeling of, I see the progress, I see the results. It's so exciting. And then I get tired. And that's kind of where I am right now with mine, is that I'm tired because I feel like I have like spun my wheels like crazy this last month. And yes, there was progress to be seen. But now I'm like, but what if I don't do it? What if I don't do it next month and I take time off and I avoid the burnout that I'm starting to feel? And then I'm like, but I'm terrified. I can't make myself do that. So anyway.
Well, I will say this. That's how I feel about writing this. Like standalones, if it goes bad, okay. If I write another book or I don't, who cares?
Right.
I mean, my readers that like my books, they but now that I have a series, it's like I feel the extra, like, I got to write. I got to get this out within the year. So
well, and you talked about the price of a book. Well,
yeah, let's go back
part
to
of the
that.
price of a book is you only have so many books in your life unless they discover immortality, which
Yeah.
so far not looking good. But if they did, great. But right now, if you're, let's say you write 2 books a year by some, if you're just, that's your drive, well, I've got maybe 30 more years of writing in me. That means I could write 60 books. Probably not, because
That was
life
like so
happens.
many. Yeah.
It does sound like a lot, but at the same
But
time,
it's not.
I
It's only
could.
60 stories. I mean,
It is,
you know,
but which 60? That's the
Right.
price.
Right.
You can't do all of them. Like, I just came
It's
up with a
true.
story for a romantic thriller that could, it could be a great little screenplay. But honestly, will I ever do it?
Well,
I
and
want
that's the
to,
thing.
but I've got so many things to do.
Well, and I think that's where writer's block, especially in between projects, happen because you have so many options, and
Paralysis.
you're worried. Yeah, because you're worried because you're like, I'm about to spend 6 months at least for me in this world. I gotta create it. I gotta like it. And so it's really tough because what if you don't?
Seriously.
Well, that's part of why I've got 30 books that are to between 2,000 and 10,000 words, because I hit that 5 to 10,000 word mark, and I'm like, is this what I want to spend my time on right now? And often, no, that's not the right one for right now. It's a great story. I love it. It's in my back burner, but there's a reason I ended up where I'm at now. I've got some ones that are basically in the same universe as the Valley of Death, and I just can't do them right now because they do not inspire me. They do not feel like the right use of my time right now. They're next in line, but they are not right now.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Like, in the process of writing Lou Giroux, I got 90,000 words into it, and I hit a hard wall. Like, there was nothing. And so I wrote another book. That's when I wrote Something Wicked Waits.
I would never do that.
Well, right.
You're right.
Now, for those that are just starting writing, I would do not do that. But if you have 2 to 3 books under your belt and you know that you can do it, then yeah, because I knew that I was going to take a break, I was going to write another book, and then I was going to come back and finish. Yeah. But it was just so I wasn't getting anywhere. Let's see.
I love Kenvy's question.
Hey,
That's something I'm always wondering. How do you finish a book or story? I almost am never able to finish my stories, even short ones. I bet each one of us has a different way that we finish a story.
Probably.
So, like, for me to finish a story, okay, it depends on how far I've gotten. If I have finished some stories and then abandoned, in the sense like, that was terrible. It was a learning experience. I won't even let my wife read it. And it's going in the pile. That one of those is my Alt History Regency Sci-Fi, because I wrote 85,000 words. The story was done, and I said, that was crap. And I took it and I set it aside, and now I'm doing it as a co-authoring thing. Great. But with book 2, my second book that I finished, I hit the middle, and I was feeling the muddle, and I pushed through it. And once I hit once I finished essentially Act 2, I couldn't put it down. I finished the rest of the book. And so for me if I can just endure Act 2, Act 3 never stops. And the way I made myself finish Act 2 is I wanted to know how Act 3 began. Because I knew how Act 3 ended, but I did not know how it began, and I was curious, and so I had to drive myself to it. So maintaining curiosity is the only way that I'm going to finish.
That's good. That's good.
No, that's true. Jen, what are your thoughts on that?
So I always know how every book I write is going to end before I write the middle. I know how it ends. I know how it begins. So I struggle to write the middle. And my biggest hurdle at the very beginning, when I wrote my first 2 books, which are a totally different series, the second book, I literally was like, what do I even put on these pages? And so I walked away from it and started writing Fall When You're Ready. I really kind of just thought. That was when I learned that I was self-editing too much. And I would put something on the page and be like, no, not that. And it was like, or you could put stuff on the page and go back and fix it later. And so I put Fall When You're Ready to the side, went back to book 2, The Lost and Found, and was like, okay, let's focus on this. And it just happened, right? I think sometimes we get in our head so much that it's just like, I don't know how to do. So I really like what you said there, to maintain curiosity. That works whether you're in the middle or you're at the end.
Yeah. I'll be honest. Like, if I told someone the end of the story, heck, even if I knew the end of the story, I don't think I would finish the book, because the magic would be gone, because I already know. You know,
that
for
is
me,
a very common pantser mentality.
Yeah. For me.
And it's not wrong.
No, right. I mean, everybody, that's the thing. Everybody does things differently, and that's great.
Yeah.
The way I look at things and the way I finish it is I kind of treat it like a diamond, right? You know, a diamond starts off at a point, or you know, at the bottom or whatever, and that's the beginning of the story. And as you bounce between the different walls, as the story gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and I think some people get lost once you're in the largest part of the diamond, when you're building up to the climax. That's where people get lost, and that's why the middle muddle, the muddling middles, as we call it, sucks, because you can get lost in the traversing of the different, you know, of the line there. But once you hit that climax, you can finish that book. It's done. I mean, once you hit the climax and you know,
yes, I would
done,
say already done.
It's already done, because I have a hard time writing more than 500 words at a time. It's just something that I've ingrained in me. I write 500 words, then I'm done for that day. But once I hit the climax, I will write. I could write 2,000 to 3,000, 4,000 words that day just to finish the story, because at that point the momentum is there. I see the end; it's right there. I got to finish. So
I wrote the last 3 or 4 chapters of the Valley of Death.
Mm-hmm.
I could not stop. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I just kept going. It was like, who knows what time. I just finished because I could not put it down. I knew kind of the ending, but I didn't know the details. See, okay, for a plotter versus a pantser. Pantser, it's totally accurate. You need to not know. For someone who's a plotter, if you're a true plotter, yeah, you probably need to know everything. Fine, that's you. I'm a plantser. I really do think I am, because I need to know roughly the ending. But if I know too much, I do get bored. I think that's the difference between a plotter and a plantser, is that we need to know some, but not too much. Because I need to know where I'm going vaguely, but I don't want to know how I'm getting there.
Right.
Because if I know how I'm getting there, I get bored and I lose interest. That's one of my problems with short stories. Short stories, I already know the whole story. I know how I want it. And I'm like, I've already told the story in my head. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
That's so funny.
So finishing a short story is harder for me than finishing a novel.
Interesting.
But I will say this, for those that are starting off and haven't finished anything ever, I would say start off with a sentence. This sounds silly. Yeah. Start off with a sentence. Finish a paragraph. Finish a page. And it doesn't even have to make sense. Just write a scene. Write a chapter. And like I said, you don't even have to add
write a novella.
Chapter.
If you can't finish a novel, finish a novella. If you can't finish a novella, finish a short story.
And that's basically how I accidentally dropped into writing books, was because when I first started, you know, I was writing scenes for a little bit, and then I wrote a short story, and then I wrote something a little bit longer, and then I wrote something, because every time you complete a project or something that you would try, it gives you that much. Since you did it once, you can do it again, and you can add on a little more. So,
and you don't have to publish the thing you write first. In fact, you might not want to. Right. My first book is a 40,000 word novella. It's crap. And I don't say that like idly. I'm like, I look back at it and I'm like, I did every mistake that I then learned. And I can't, I'm going to rewrite it as a whole new story someday with full length. It's too much fun not to eventually. But then, you know, I wrote a couple more books. I finished, I think, 3 stories that were between 70,000 and 90,000 words before I wrote my first book. And I'm not publishing any of those. I won't claim them, but I am proud of them. But they're not going into the public. If I ever get famous like Sanderson, people are going to be like, oh, please publish it as like some kind. I'm like, no. You can rip it out of my cold, dead hands.
I mean, there might be a number out there that you might say, okay.
Okay, if the number's high enough, never mind. I can be bought.
Right.
So Jen, I'm curious, did you put your first book out, or did you write some stuff?
I did. I did. I did. It was fun. I didn't think I was going to write a book. And then, because the way No Matter What came about was I'd had a dream one night. I woke up and I thought, I wonder how that dream was going to end. And so I started writing it down because I just kind of wanted to, scribble out some thoughts. I've always liked just writing my thoughts down. And so I started writing it and I was like, this is actually a lot of words. And so it just kind of kept growing and growing. And yeah, it was rough. The first draft, I didn't know how rough it was because I didn't read it initially. I let Rob read it and he's like, this is good. It needs some work. And I was like, okay, great. So, but yeah, I did. That was my first one and I stuck it out there and I was like,
that was the same. That's the same way with me. Like I wrote a 15,000 words short story and then, I didn't touch anything for quite a while. And then when all that shutdown happened, I'm like, well, I want to write a book. I've never done it. So I wrote a book and I put it out, and thankfully it's okay.
I was going to say, Jim,
people like it.
I think you had a chosen one moment. You had a dream. You woke up and you wrote the entire book. That is a chosen one arc.
I'm telling you, and I had always thought,
be scared.
Well, thankfully I haven't had any more dreams, but I do have invisible people that talk to me in my head every day. So maybe I don't know. But
of course you do. Don't we all?
Yeah, we all do though. That's what that is. I don't know. I think it is funny though that I started writing and I thought, I was probably around chapter 4 when I was like, I think I'm going to write a book. And Rob was like, okay, that's a great idea. Like either of us had any idea what that really meant.
I love your stalker. He's so great. So
He's so great. So very encouraging.
Huh.
Yep. So anyway.
That's the interesting thing about writing, though, is it almost does feel kind of like you're being called to it when it happens. Because I was 40, and I was called to it in the way an engineer has to be called to writing in this way. Someone said something, you can't write an unlikable protagonist, and I said, challenge accepted, and
Watch me.
Suddenly I'm an author. They were right, by the way. You can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is true though. Like there is a certain point in once you write a book, once you put it out and you realize, I wouldn't say easy. Once you realize how to do it. Yeah, it's doable. It's doable. Good. Because it's doable. Then you're like, well, I can do this again.
Yeah.
And then when you start
it's addicting.
Well, then you start getting feedback from people you don't know. That's the most emotional thing you'll ever go through, by the way.
Yeah.
As a writer, is the first unsolicited review from someone you don't know. I cried. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, I'm a manly man. I've done a lot of cool stuff, but I was just like, I can't believe someone, thought enough of it to let me know.
They like me.
Yeah,
they really like me.
Well, they like my words. So,
Right.
But no, and
close enough.
But it's just
that's who I am now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, let's see. Kimby says, thanks, that was helpful. The diamond metaphor is helpful in thinking of it. I think I get stuck in the middle. I might be a pantser like Hyrum. Like Hyrum. I start writing, and then at some point I get stuck.
Yeah.
And follow on, and don't know where to go. Then I stop and start a new story. Right.
Okay, so I can give some advice on this because I have stopped and started more things than most people can dream of.
He has 3 master's degrees. So.
I have 3 master's degrees. I've stopped and started way more than most people.
But you also finished. So that's.
I did finish the degree. I didn't finish any of the PhD programs I started because I learned, oh wait, that sounds like the lower levels of hell. But anyway. So here's the deal. When you have a story that if you want to finish it, the key is that you have to say, okay, why am I bored about this book? Why is this story boring me right now? You have to ask that question, and as a planter, it does help. Now, AI is going to help you now. This is the only time that I say AI is helpful in this podcast, is you take your book, preferably using a secure AI. I'm grateful I have that through my work. I can put it on there. It will not end up on the internet. Find a secure AI. If you don't have it, talk to me. And you have it give you chapter summaries. Unless you've been making them as you go, which is wise, hint, but have it make you chapter summaries. Have it make you bullet points. And then go through and treat it. Now, I'm an engineer, so maybe it won't work for you, but I treat it like a puzzle. Like, okay, this arc is going this way. This arc is going this way. Oh, I wasn't paying attention to this subtle thing I established at the beginning of the book that I subconsciously was going to tie everything together with. And I only discover it because I analyzed the story partway through. I did that before by simply revising. I hit the 50,000 word mark and I basically revised the whole 50,000 words. That's when I hit 50,000 and just kept going. But not everyone can afford that kind of time. I think I could have done the same thing if I had realized my goal. Then I could have just kept writing and then revised everything at once.
Yeah. That's fair.
Well, we've talked a lot in 30 minutes. We didn't even get to the news.
I know.
As my high school physics teacher would have said, he said it to one kid mostly, but it wasn't me happily. He said, "You talk more words per square minute than anyone I know."
Per square minute.
Well, I just want to add in here, though, real quick, before we...
Woohoo! Kenvy's also an engineer.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's neat.
That's why we all get along so well.
So, one of our listeners, Anne-Marie Cutler, which thank you for thinking of us and sending this our way, talking about AI. Apparently, there's a program out there or a service out there that uses AI to, and I don't want to mention the name because I don't want to, I don't want this to be, I don't want to like advertise for them, but I am kind of jealous that they came up with the idea before I did.
Yeah.
No, but it's a service that I guess you can put in information and it will spit out a satirical book
About a person.
Yeah. And
Ooh.
and I'm just kind of torn on that because it's like,
Well, there's so many currently in the news that would be fun to make satirical books about.
See,
All right,
that's scary too.
that's another podcast.
Right. No, it was interesting. I looked at the website and I was like, oh, okay. So you answer these questions about like you put in a person's name and then you answer all of these questions. It's kind of like a Mad Lib, if you ask me. It's like writing a Mad Lib about somebody in a book form, because you're answering all these questions about them and then they turned into satire about the person. So, I mean,
That sounds like my job.
I just don't know, like, because I know how much it costs to make a book
right.
in bulk. I can
Yeah.
only imagine how much that would. I mean, I didn't look at the prices, but that'd be pretty
either.
steep.
Well, it's like my favorite tweet of recent days that said, "If you can't be bothered to write the book, why would I be bothered to read it?"
Ooh. I like
It's
it.
true. It's true.
It's funny.
So what?
Yeah.
Let's get to the news because we're
We promised.
because we promised. What's news?
There's been no newsworthy items in the real world this week. We're gonna. I mean, I haven't
None
heard
at all.
anything
None
happen
at
this
all.
week,
People
but
are
in
losing their
writing
minds
world,
for
Jen
no
has.
reason.
Y'all. Oh my goodness. Do either of y'all have anything before I open this can of worms?
No, I mean it's probably
Okay.
along the same lines. But go ahead.
So, over on Book Threads, it has been a madhouse. It has been
Bloodbath.
ugly. There were people, and it all stemmed from the great big United States event that occurred this week, and all the things surrounding that. And I'm tired. Like I am fatigued from just reading it because there were people who were calling for authors and readers to off themselves because they did not practice a certain action in the same way they would have. There was one woman who put out, they called it the red list. And if you were a conservative author or reader on Bookstagram, Book Threads, Book Talk, and they found out about it in any way, shape, or form, whether they went through your posts or whatever, you went on this list and that was like, don't read these authors and don't use these influencers and that kind of thing. It has been so ugly and it has been so tacky and it's been evil is what it has been. And I just want to take this moment to say, if you're going to use your platform in that way to be divisive in a world where indie authors already have to fight to be heard and seen, and then you're going to turn around and use your platform to marginalize anybody who doesn't think or act like you, unfollow, unlike, blocked. Like there's zero reason for that to be the mentality when we are already fighting, trying to support one another or saying we're this world of support and that kind of thing. But instead we step back and say, well, you're not like me anymore, and therefore we're not friends, and nobody else should be friends with you either.
That's the thing. It's like I am totally okay with someone not agreeing with the way I think. In fact, I applaud you for thinking your own thing, and I'll even support you, even.
Absolutely.
But
in my side business, I have one of my business partner. I have two business partners. One is from Connecticut, and he is of the opposite political party than me. And I have one from India who makes fun of both of us, and it's quite entertaining because we are friends and business partners, because we are equal opportunity mocking each other. We do not care. We are ribbing each other. We are teasing each other. We have fun. The Indian has probably more fun than both of us because he doesn't have a skin in the game, so he really doesn't care. He just makes fun of both of us. That's how we should be seeing each other as authors, is friends who happen to disagree, and we should all take the joke.
Right. Well, but I think the thing is karma is a B word.
Baloney.
Yeah.
That's the B word.
Yeah, that's the B word. I try to maintain. Trust me, if we're offline, you would hear something completely different. But I try to be a little bit, thoughtful. But no, seriously though, karma will come back and bite people because whatever happened, half the country or half the people in that event voted one way or the other. And if you're going to cut half of your audience, regardless of which side, you're going to lose because you're going to lose followers. No one likes a jerk.
Yeah, no, seriously. And you know what? You cannot control the world. You cannot control other people's opinions, but you can control your own voice. And I think for some reason we take this freedom of speech thing. I'm all for freedom of speech, but not when it becomes violent, not when it becomes hateful, not when it becomes divisive. When we start going after each other rather than building each other up. And I mean, good gracious, like the amount of restraint I have had to show, even on my personal Facebook page this week, I'm just like, whoo, Holy Spirit, just put a hand over my mouth and take the mouse away. Like we're like just back
Jesus,
away.
shut down my feed.
Jesus, take the wheel. Like it's been one of those weeks. But if I can do it, anybody can do it. Let me just tell you that.
Because she's from the South, and she might bless your heart, and then you're in trouble.
That's right.
I've been blessed your heart. I think I actually died, and they had to bring me back.
Pretty sure that's how that works. But I think it's just important that we understand that our platforms, our professional platforms, they matter. Oh, they matter so much now and in the future. Like you may have a totally different opinion in 6 months about everything. You may have had a moment to breathe and chill, and you may think differently in 6 months, but those posts, that damage has already been done. So shut your mouth just for a minute and think before you start responding to anybody or making accusations or throwing around threats or telling people to off themselves. Like, come on.
I have a rule that I'm 95% good at following. If I feel that my emotions are heightened, I will write, but I will not post. Right. And I will write it in an email box where there's nothing in the sender, the to, so I can't send it by accident or in a spur of a moment. And if the next morning I still feel, after reflection and feeling calm, that this is an appropriate post, then I will post it. Now, am I perfect at that? No. Have I done things that I regret? I've posted a few things. I tend to delete those and then regret them. I think that if you're listening to this podcast, you probably are at least tolerant enough to say, maybe I should do that, because then I'll use my brain before I post.
I tell you what, there are times...
Plus you find more typos doing that.
There are times where I immediately, someone makes a comment, and it's just flame on. I'm like, and I write a long post, and then I show it to my wife, who's the level head, and she's like,
And the editor.
Yes. which we do need to talk about cost of books. Maybe we can talk about it next week, as far as like the actual making of a book. But anyway, so she's the cooler head, and then after I think about it, and after I sit and and then I'm like, okay, Josh, you're an idiot. Stop.
Yeah, my wife is also the cooler head, and if I write something and she is like, "That's not strong enough," I'm like, "Oh crap, it's on."
That's when you know. That's so funny because Rob is also the cooler head in our marriage, and so
Are writers just hotheads? Is that what you're saying?
maybe we're just emotional people.
Well, yeah, we're creatives, so we what if everything, and so we're like, Anyway, all right.
would never
Show don't
catastrophize.
tell.
Yeah. Well, we are at 40 minutes. I think tonight was a great conversation. We had awesome engagement. Kimby, thank you for popping in there with your questions. And everyone else, thank you for spending your time with us. Be sure to email us at authorsdilemma@gmail.com if you have any topics you would like us to discuss or something you want us to talk about. We would love to engage. Thank you for your time. I hope you have a blessed week, and we'll see you next time. God bless.
Bye.
Yes.